This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
You know when you reach that age where everyone and their mother won't shut up about their credit scores, yet it seems like no one really understands what's so special about those 3 random numbers? That's because credit scores are meaningless, unless you have Credit Karma to show you how to use them. We use those 3 random numbers, plus your financial profile, to help you find your next opportunity. Like a more rewarding credit card, a game plan that helps you pay down debt faster, or a personal loan to help you save more on interest payments each month. Cha-ching! Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
We have breaking news out of Santa Clara. San Francisco 49ers star wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk will miss the 2024 NFL season due to suffering a torn ACL and a torn MCL with potential further damage done to his right knee. So Brandon Aiyuk is done for this year, and because of that further damage and the torn ACL, could potentially miss a chunk, and if worse comes to worse, maybe even all of 2025. My name is Sterling Bennett. Welcome into 49ers Access. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because today is a sombering day amongst the Niner faithful. You lose against the Kansas City Chiefs 28-18 in rather humiliating fashion in front of your home fans. It's a frustrating day, but then the Monday after today, what you hoped was a victory Monday has kind of become a Monday where you question just how far this team can go following the loss, and now the news about Brandon Aiyuk going to miss the remainder of 2024. San Francisco, this season feels like 2020. The hope was that, well, you're 3-5, you're 4-4 at the bye week. Maybe it's a 2021, 2022 situation all over again, but each week that goes by, it feels like that this year feels more like 2020 than anything. You're already missing Christian McCaffrey and Dre Greenlaw. Talanoa Hufanga came back and then got re-injured. Elijah Mitchell's been out. John Feliciano's been out. You're missing a lot of your stars, Javon Hargrave, Yetur Gross-Matos, and now Brandon Aiyuk will officially be placed on injured reserve and miss this year and potentially a chunk of next year. You watched the game yesterday. You've seen the highlight. Brandon Aiyuk's leg did not go the right direction. And when it happened, we all said, ooh, that didn't look good. He got carted off on the field. He was pointing to his knee, talking to the people, saying, it's my knee, which in post-game, Kyle Shanahan said he thought it was an ACL. That's the fear. Unfortunately, they were wrong. It's 10 times worse than just an ACL. An ACL in itself is obviously hard to come back from. Usually it takes, the guy gets injured, the player gets injured, and then it takes a year, about 6 to 8 months to recover from the injury, a year to be on the field, and 1 full year to get back to who they were before the injury occurred. It's rare that players come back like Adrian Peterson, but it's devastating for a young player like Brandon Aiyuk, who you just paid a massive contract to. And that is, I think, one of the points of contention with me and the fan base currently, is that there are some, not all, none here, hopefully, that I get the antics that Brandon Aiyuk went to get that brand new contract. I get it rubbed fans the wrong way. Nobody likes a quote-unquote diva receiver, from the podcast to holding out longer than he needed to by his own admittance. That turned fans off. And I get that. That's frustrating for a fan base that views this year as a win-now season. And for a player to, in their eyes, not take it very seriously, I'd push back on that. Brandon Aiyuk, I think, wanted to be in San Francisco, obviously signed a massive contract to remain in San Francisco. I think he wanted to have a great year, but you combine the offseason antics with, if this is the end of Brandon Aiyuk with the Niners in 2024, which is kind of confirmed to be the case, he's going to finish with under 30 catches this season. He's going to finish with under 500 yards and no touchdowns in 2024. It's tough. Aiyuk wanted to be better. San Francisco 49er fans wanted him to be better. The expectation was you get a in his prime Brandon Aiyuk, albeit it'll take some time to pick things up. He'll hopefully find his footing as the year progresses, and by the time playoffs come around, you have a healthy Deebo Samuel, and up to speed Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing, and Christian McCaffrey, and Brandon Aiyuk, and okay, the band's back together at full speed. Who can stop them? That's the hope. Unfortunately, the expectations, whether it's based on record, stats, box score, it's not been the case for the 49ers in 2024. It's not been great. The season in itself so far has been a letdown. Brandon Aiyuk was a letdown in 2024. I tried to keep the players or people mindset. I'm sure he's heartbroken. He's in pain. The ACL itself would have been tough, and now it's an MCL and potential further damage, which could be, maybe if it's worst come to worst, it could alter his entire career. Again, ACLs are hard to come back to by themselves, but an MCL, further damage, I mean, you want to talk about catastrophic. We could be looking at Brandon Aiyuk never being the same ever again, which for a player that his bread and butter is separation and creating space and cutting on those slants and deep crossers, being what this team expects a pure receiver to be, that skill set is going to take a long time to build back up. But how do you move on? My heart goes out to Brandon Aiyuk. I want him to be okay, get healthy, and hoping the return is better than what it was in 2024. And, let's be blunt and be honest here, because these situations just need facts. In 2024, Brandon Aiyuk was not the receiver San Francisco paid for. Now, because of the injury, he's likely not going to be that guy in 2025, and because of how bad the injury is, or what it seems to be per all the reports out there, he may not be the same guy even in 2026. We're talking 3 prime years of Brandon Aiyuk. If it is the worst case scenario, he may never be the same again, and San Francisco's money goes down the drain. And unfortunately for a young, good player, Brandon Aiyuk's career may never be the same. Like, we could be talking about an Odell Beckham-like downward fall. That's how sad this is. And it sucks. Just bluntly sucks. But how does San Francisco move on? They could look outside of the building. We have Bruce Jones here saying, devastating. Aiyuk is my favorite player, but you got to trade for a receiver. Go get Deontay Johnson or Darius Slayton. I am someone that kind of picked the Chiefs to get Deontay Johnson. I also don't believe San Francisco is looking for a receiver elsewhere. I think you get, hopefully, Deebo Samuel is back and Juwan Jennings are back against the Cowboys this week. Deebo, to me, wasn't that serious. He was sick, got sick during warmups, and Jennings will now have over 14 days off to recoup his injury. So you should get both your now starting receivers back. Jennings having a great season, Deebo being rather inconsistent so far in 2024, but you can certainly look outside of San Francisco. You can target players like Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Darius Slayton, amongst others. DeAndre Hopkins could be out there, but I don't think any of those players move the needle for Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch. I mean, for goodness sake, you just drafted Ricky Pearsall with the 31st overall pick this year, and you drafted Jacob Cowing 3 rounds later. If there is now a time to rely on the young players you picked in this year's draft, it's now. Now, unfortunately for those guys, Pearsall first game back against the Chiefs, he looked okay. There was some good stuff. There was some bad stuff. First game in the NFL. That's what happens. But they no longer have time to acclimate themselves to the NFL. Cowling and Pearsall have to grow up fast. That is how the NFL works. Unfortunately, injuries happen, but nobody cares. The Cowboys don't care. The Chiefs don't care. The Packers don't care. The Lions aren't going to care. This is the NFL. You have to find a way to move on and find a way to win games. And I think for San Francisco, you are going to have to ask a ton from young and unproven players. I mean, I would assume that Kyle Shanahan walks into the Dallas Cowboys game, barring something else crazy happening, with Aiyuk as the X receiver, Jennings as the Y receiver, and I would not be shocked to see Chris Conley start, but fingers crossed, Jacob Cowing or Ricky Pearsall become this team's slot receiver in 2024 and going forward this year. I think for an offense that has been so stuck in the mud, an offense that even despite having Deebo Samuel and having Jawan Jennings having a career year and having George Kittle playing really good football and Deebo Samuel on and off the field, albeit on the field more than off the field, they've been stuck in the mud. It's an offense that can't get in the end zone. The yak isn't there anymore. They can't run the football in the red zone. It's just, what the heck's happening in San Francisco where they're looking for answers. CMC might come back soon. Maybe he fixes some problems, but he's not going to save your season. Brock Purdy has eerily similar numbers when CMC plays and doesn't plays. Which a good report, a positive news update is Christian McCaffrey is shooting for, is hoping, is eyeing that Week 10 game against the Buccaneers as his return date. It's post-bye week. I'm not going to play against the Cowboys, but it seems like if all goes as planned, Christian McCaffrey should make his 2024 NFL debut in 3 weeks' time, post-trade deadline, post-bye week. So there is optimism for San Francisco. Certainly, things can, go in the right direction in the next few weeks, and you can feel pretty good about the year. But as of right now, things feel relatively low for the Niners. You have to bank on young players making plays now. You have to almost operate as we have no other option. And I'm hoping that Kyle Shanahan doesn't, revert back to playing Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley. Let these young guys make mistakes. Let them grow while they're playing. Unfortunately, that's the reality you're living in now. You don't have the luxury of sitting Pearsall or Cowing for a year and getting them up to speed. Got to grow up quick. They are going to be thrust into the limelight. I believe it's prime time Sunday night football against the Dallas Cowboys this week. So bright lights, Levi's Stadium. Show the world why you were a first-round pick, Ricky Pearsall. Show the NFL why you were a fourth-round pick this year, Jacob Cowing. And we talked about after the loss yesterday, early in the morning at 12 a.m., we talked about that loss, about how Shanahan has not been diving into that bag of creativity recently. And this is a time where it shouldn't take a Brandon Aiyuk injury for Shanahan to do so, but you did see once Aiyuk got injured, for as terrible as it is, you did see you saw Kyle Shanahan start to get creative, some screen passes, some double moves with the receivers to get them open downfield, and they lost that game, but you did see some creativity. You saw a delayed quarterback sneak where they pulled the guard and center over. Who does that? So I'm hoping that for as bad as the Aiyuk injury is, for as, dare I say, limited as the offense has been so far, despite the stars on the field, this may be a good thing for Kyle Shanahan. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek. It's always a bad thing to lose one of your best players, but this may force Shanahan to, ramp it up a bit, to get Pearsall involved, Cowing involved, be more like an Andy Reid that utilizes his young players that, maybe are not up to speed just yet, but they have those few skills that can help them. For Ricky Pearsall, he's probably going to start against the Dallas Cowboys. Good luck. Here we go. You went to the SEC, you were in Florida, you were, one of their best players out there, you were a first-round pick this year. Prove it. Prove your worth to this NFL roster. Jacob Cowing, I hope to God that Kyle Shanahan realizes just how explosive Cowing can be. If you're going to draft these guys, you better use them. Like, what is the point of drafting guys in the first and second, and third, and fourth rounds and not utilizing them? You don't have an option now. Like, you're going to start Ronnie Bell? This fan base will revolt. Now, Kyle's not going to care, but I mean, my goodness, you watch this game and, it's frustrating in itself. You're losing big. It's not fun. You're kind of sitting back like, here we go again, Kansas City Chiefs. But Jacob Cowing was this team's best graded offensive player against Kansas City. 86.5 grade. Now, if you aren't a PFF guy or girl, go ahead and tune out for 2 seconds here. He played 12 snaps. How did he only play 12 snaps and was your best offensive player on the field when you had Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, George Kittle for 3 snaps, Deebo Samuel for almost a full half a play, Brandon Aiyuk? He was your best offensive graded player, yet Ronnie Bell was on the field for 24 snaps. He doubled Cowing's snaps. That can't happen. Cowing had 50 receiving yards yesterday. It was like a 9-yard screen pass that was pretty explosive and came in handy at the time. Then you had that big 41-yard deep ball from Purdy, which, had that been in stride, would have been a touchdown pass. And yes, again, somehow, Ronnie Bell plays twice the snaps that Cowing does. It doesn't make sense. I get Ronnie Bell can block, but how many times does he have to make the same mistakes over and over again where...
With Uber Reserve, good things come to those who plan ahead. Family vacay? Reserve your ride as soon as you book your flights. To all the planners, now you can reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. See Uber app for details.
Unfortunately, the Niners have put themselves in a position that they have to play desperate on a week-to-week basis, right? You were 3-3, now you're 3-4. You have to play desperate to become 4-4. Now you are 3-4 without Christian McCaffrey, without Brandon Aiyuk. Deebo Samuel was currently sick. Juwan Jennings is technically still hurt, although it's supposed to come back. You don't have Javon Hargrave. You don't have Talanoa Hufanga. You don't have Dre Greenlaw. You don't have Yetur Gross-Matos. You're on your third kicker. You worked out a punter today. Like, you have to play like you're a bad team. And dare I say they are a bad team so far this year, but you have to play with that desperation. You have to play with that, look, there is no tomorrow mindset. And I think through 7 weeks, that hasn't been there for San Francisco. I think that they've kind of rested on some laurels, thought we'll walk into Seattle, take a win. We'll try our best against Kansas City, but we're unprepared for what was happening offensively. And they lose games against the Rams and Cardinals. They play down to their opponents to a point where they've dug themselves into a hole. And like we said yesterday, covering the losses against Kansas City, it's not going to get any easier. Your schedule's tougher. Now you're losing a star receiver. You have to be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, make some plays. And for Kyle Shanahan, you have to nearly design a perfect offensive game plan week by week now. The Dallas Cowboys, for example, are not going to have DeMarcus Lawrence, may or may not have Micah Parsons. They're a little banged up defensively. Their offense hasn't been who they once were in previous seasons, despite having CeeDee Lamb back under a massive contract and bringing back Ezekiel Elliott. It's a time to pounce, a time to see an opponent that is broken and bruised, like the Niners are, and say, you know what? Blood in the water. Attack. Get aggressive. Go for it on fourth down. Play with that desperation. Utilize screen passes, end-arounds, dump-offs. There are so many ways to involve a player like Jacob Cowing. We talked about, during the draft process when they picked him, that he can be this number 2 gadget player. He can do more things than that for sure. But as a young player, like Andy Reid utilizes Mecole Hardman, we talked again after that loss yesterday. Mecole Hardman's not a great receiver, but they make sure to manufacture him touches, get him free releases so that when he gets the ball in his hands, he can utilize that 4.3, 4.4 speed and make that offense more explosive in Kansas City. You want to see that from Shanahan and Jacob Cowing. Get Pearsall involved in similar ways too. Again, there's almost no excuse now. Your back's against the wall. Are you going to answer that call? Are you going to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and figure things out? Or are you going to let the season weigh you down? This team has gone to back-to-back-to-back NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl. That in itself is a grind. It's grueling. You have also the oldest roster in football. 28 years of age is the average player getting snaps on this roster. That's including a 30-year-old George Kittle, a 36-year-old Trent Williams, a 30-plus-year-old Kyle Juszczyk. This team is not young. This is a perfect opportunity to almost be forced to, but have to have this influx of young talent carry you to that next core of Niner players that hopefully are great enough to at least be in a Super Bowl once again. This 2024 draft class this year has been one of the best. I think it has the potential to be the best since 2019. Pooney has been phenomenal. Renardo Green has been great in short stints now that he's starting. Malik Mustafa has been awesome. Now it's time for Grendo and Pearsall and Cowing to become that next kind of breed of offensive stars. 2019 was great. Debo, and you had Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw and DJ Jones. That was the core that carried you to this, last 4 or 5 years of runs that were spectacular. Let this group now be that team. Are you going to win 10 games? Probably not. Are you going to be a wild card team? Maybe. There's still a chance San Francisco wins the division. They're one game behind the Seattle Seahawks, who play the Bills this Sunday. If they lose and San Francisco wins, they go into the bye week 4-4 in first place again. It's not like the season's over with, but the season's already been hard in itself, and it feels like every time they have seemingly bounced back or kind of shattered that glass ceiling of this year and pushed their way through, they fall all the way back to the beginning. Yesterday was a reversion back to week 3 against the Rams, week 5 against the Cardinals. And it's like, what is going on? This is not the team that won a week ago against the Seahawks in Lumen Field on Thursday Night Football. Yesterday felt like that team that lost against the Cardinals and Rams and looked terrible against the Vikings in Minnesota. So they have to answer the call. They have to get young guys involved, use gadget plays, get creative. When Jimmy Garoppolo played quarterback, for as limited as he was, it almost forced Kyle Shanahan to get creative, to almost scheme around his quarterback. Now, within that, they won a ton of games. They almost won a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, and they believed that, Jimmy G might be better than Tom Brady in 2020, which wasn't the case. But with Jimmy G, Shanahan had to be this ultra creative game planner to win games and maximize a limited skill set. It's not the quarterback's fault this year, but you almost have to get back to that. Screen passes, dump offs, end arounds. Debo's the wide back, and just do all these creative plays. Utilize Debo as a quarterback at times. Get creative. Do trick plays. Try flea flickers and double screens, and just do things that the other defense doesn't see coming. The one thing Andy Reid is so good at is giving the defense a look they've never seen before. As Niner fans, we watched the Chiefs yesterday line up Carson Wentz and Patrick Mahomes, both their quarterbacks, in three-point stances at the goal line in the red zone. Now, the play didn't work. They didn't score a touchdown, but it's like, what do we do? Do you call a timeout? It's like, we haven't seen this before. For Kyle Shanahan, you got to get back to stuff like that. Now, that's an example. I'm not saying put Brandon Allen out there and Joshua Dobbs out there, but it's like, that's creativity that Shanahan's not utilizing. The Shanahan scheme, I know, is wide zone, run the football, play action. But even then, even the scheme that we've come to know, this offense hasn't really been operating in or under for the most part. That Seattle Seahawks game, probably the biggest example of it working out. But you just need more from Kyle Shanahan. You need more from Brock Purdy. You need to be able to get your receivers free releases, put guys in motions. The one thing the Miami Dolphins did so well last year with Tua being healthy was, they were almost cheating in a way. They're moving guys as the ball's being snapped, doing this like the arena football style of play where they're sprinting, the ball is snapped, and they're just gone because they're already at a full sprint as soon as the ball snapped. Now, that's an extreme example of that, but it's creativity. It's exploiting the NFL's rules. Shanahan has to do stuff like that. Get desperate. Now, with that said, this team, on paper, still pretty good. Brock Purdy's a quarterback, having one of his best years ever despite yesterday's really bad performance against the Chiefs. Debo, if he's healthy, still a good player. Juwan's having a great year. Kittle's having a great year. The offensive line's been hit or miss. Center and right tackle not been great, but, Trent's still Trent for the most part. Pooney's been awesome. Banks has been inconsistent, but still good enough to, be, a top 15 guard in football on the left side. And the defense has played good football, 3 games in a row. So it's not to say they have to just, throw the whole playbook out and restart. It's just go back to 2019, 2021, when you were 3-5, when you were 4-4, and you were on your third string quarterback. Utilize that genius-like brain that you have, Kyle. Get back to the creativity you once had. Go back to the 90s in regards to design and creativity were so crazy. Cartoons were nuts, and now in 2024 it's kind of bland and boring. You got to go back to what that once was. As my dog barks in the corner, you just got to be the Kyle Shanahan we know you are, and you have to get back to that team that was once reliant on the scheme to carry the offense and the stars like Debo and Aiyuk and Kittle to be the playmakers. Got young players now. Get desperate. Make some moves. You need Ricky Pearsall to be the first-round pick he was. I'm someone that believes in Pearsall, but the expectation is not going to be high in his second ever career game. He was targeted 3 times yesterday. He needs to get implemented more in the offense, get acclimated to the offense more. But, you get 3 consecutive plays of 4 yards in the NFL, that's a first down. You don't have to be, working and utilizing plays 35 yards downfield, 20 yards downfield. Those are great. You can be explosive, sure, but, I have no problem San Francisco winning games 21-20. Or 24-17. If you're winning games in football, you're just racking up wins, even if they're ugly, we'll take those. Take Kansas City, for example. They snuck away from the Falcons. They escaped the Ravens because Likely's big toe was on the out-of-bounds line. They barely beat the Bengals. The Chiefs have won relatively ugly this year, but they're 6-0. They'll take that because they're going to hit their stride come playoff time. For San Francisco, now is a time to almost win ugly. Be okay winning ugly. You don't have to win 36-28 or whatever it was against the Seattle Seahawks. You win a game 24-20, cool. You're 4-4. Great. Go into the bye week, rest up. I think the bye week this year, it's coming at the perfect time. It is in week number 9, exactly halfway through the NFL season, and that is a time to self-scout. You don't want to have this kind of survival mindset against the Dallas Cowboys. We all want to see 42-10, but, it's kind of like get to the bye week. Escape with the win, get to the bye week, self-scout yourself, see what's working, what's not working, make those changes. Kyle Shanahan, his record month by month is pretty atrocious in September and October. And once you hit November, December, that's when they turn things on. They self-scout halfway through the year. They find what's working, what's not working, and they turn the heat up and get back to playing great football. So, I wish that was going to include a healthy Brandon Aiyuk and a healthy Christian McCaffrey, but it's not now. Now you have to self-scout with rookies and young players and, God forbid Ronnie Bell's playing 24 plus snaps a game. I mean, my goodness, how terrible has he been? But, you need to manufacture plays for your stars, get them free releases. The offense has become so one-dimensional, which is unfortunate. The red zone efficiency was 25th in football coming into yesterday. And I'm sure after a red zone interception and some couple field goals, I'm sure it's like 28th in football now. It's not great. Not great at all. But in regards to Brandon Aiyuk, I get fans are let down. He's let down. I'm let down. It sucks. It's catastrophic. We could never see Aiyuk ever the same again. Torn ACL, torn MCL, and further possible damage done to his right knee. The contract, I've heard many people saying as the NFL trade deadline approaches that before Aiyuk got hurt, trade him. Trade Aiyuk away. He had a $45 million dead cap this year. He has a 39.2 dead cap next year. And let's be honest here, if it's as bad as we think it may be, you're not going to see Aiyuk until 2026. I mean, he ain't going nowhere. We are potentially looking at another just dead contract for San Francisco, which I hope not. I hope I'm so wrong and Aiyuk comes back and he's awesome and he's separating and he's cooking with Brock Purdy. But, that's another aspect of this, is that Brock and Aiyuk were so intertwined last year. They were so in tune with each other where now he's not going to have his number one guy for 1.5, 2 years. I mean, you want to talk about paying Brock Purdy, which I think he'll still get paid, still a great quarterback, but it's like, man, like all the hope, the aspiration would have been like, wow, what's pair Aiyuk and Purdy for 5+ years, have the great, the next great quarterback receiver tandem. That's out the window. Now, maybe it's Pearsall and Aiyuk or Pearsall and Purdy and Pearsall and Cowling. Maybe that's the case, but it's like, you're not getting Aiyuk and Purdy for probably 2 years now. This year or next year. That's probably what it's going to be. Like, you're not getting, Aiyuk's not going to be walking for months. He'll be MCL, ACL, on the couch, elevated therapy, and you're not going to see him jogging and walking maybe until late into training camp. Like, that's how scary this is. 6 to 8 months, we're talking April-ish maybe if he's lucky. Then you're talking maybe June or July. And that's, ramping up, getting back on the field for the first time, not coming back to actually play. So, we could be talking about a Dre Greenlaw where he's out for half a year, then comes back and you hope he's okay situation where you love these guys. We love Greenlaw, Hufanga, Aiyuk. You want these guys to come back because they're young, they're awesome when they're healthy, but, this is a career of Brandon Aiyuk's that the trajectory was so high. All pros upcoming and 1,000-yard receiving years and multiple touchdowns a year. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be Garcia and T.O. and Montana and Rice. And, oh, man, it is endless possibilities for Aiyuk and Purdy. And now it's like that can be out the window entirely. And now San Francisco, I have no idea what the insurance looks like. Every big contract is insured to a certain degree. San Francisco will likely get back some money this year from the Aiyuk deal, I would assume, maybe even next year, but that is the last thing to worry about. I mean, San Francisco has to find a way to win in week number 8. It's like, okay, you have to beat the Cowboys now without your number one receiver who is having a bad year. And so it's like, what do you think of the injury? What should San Francisco do? Should they trade for a star receiver? Should they go and get a Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Darius Slayton, a DeAndre Hopkins? Who do you think or what do you think San Francisco should do? I'm of the mindset, play the young draft picks you just got. Pearsall first-round pick, Cowing. Let the young guys breathe some life into a dead offense currently. I really, really, really think that it's going to benefit this offense. We have, I think it's Matuki says, fire Kyle Shanahan. It's not going to happen. If anybody, and I hate to say this because the year has been just bad. Like, you're 3-4. The expectations were sky high. They have exceeded none of those. In fact, they have, we thought it was going to be bad, but holy, you know what? Like, what is going on for the 49ers? If there is a head coach that can scheme up an offense that doesn't have stars, it's Kyle Shanahan. And I get it. That's frustrating because of how bad this year has gone, and for as unprepared as they've been, and for special team issues and the offensive red zone problems and the third down conversion rate. Like, it's all been relatively bad, right? But if I were to ask you, of the NFL play callers, who would you trust to win games with a backup quarterback or no offensive stars? Andy Reid probably is up there for sure, probably number one on your list. But I think Kyle Shanahan is in that conversation, in that tier number 2. Like, if Reid's by himself, you're talking about McVay and Kyle Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell. Like, that's kind of the group we're in now. And so, for the fire Kyle Shanahan group, it's like, one, it's not going to happen anyways, but you're in a position now where you need Kyle Shanahan more than ever to pick you up and be the head coach. Ben Johnson too. But Ben Johnson's not coming to San Francisco. They're not firing Ben Johnson in Detroit. He's not leaving Detroit unless he's getting a head coaching job, where they just gave Kyle a brand new contract, I think, last year. So it's like Kyle's locked in. He's locked in. Which you can hate that. That's fine. I totally understand. But for Brandon Aiyuk's case, and the Niners' case, you need Kyle more than ever. Like, this is an opportunity for Kyle to really prove his worth and prove that, wow, I am that genius. I am that top dog. I am one of the best play callers in football. You really need him now. And I think that, despite the frustration, if you were to ask yourself, of the offensive coordinators, who would you bank on pulling this team back together?
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I think Kyle would be at the top of that list. He was winning games with Brian Hoyer, Nick Mullins, and CJ Beathard. And it's like, good God. I don't know if you're referring to Brandon Aiyuk, but maybe it's Kyle Shanahan. YouTube comment by, is it New Raw Prado Trace, says his season needed to start for it to be over. Let's be honest. Yeah, I don't know. Man. I don't know. All I know is this, is that the San Francisco 49ers are 3-4. It's not where they want to be, not where they should be, and it's not where they can stay if they want to win the NFC West this year. I also know that the NFC West is one game away, and if they win against the Dallas Cowboys this Sunday and the Seattle Seahawks lose against the Bills, somehow San Francisco is back in first place. That is how close this thing is. Nobody has pulled away just yet. Now, we are starting to see that happen. The Packers are 5-1. The Lions, I think, are 5-1, or maybe they're 4-2, or 5-2, excuse me. They're around there. They're in first place now. Beat the Vikings. The Vikings are 5-1. The Bills are up there. The Ravens are up there. Like, you're starting to see the elite separate from the good and the average, and the good and the average separate from the bad. San Francisco somehow finds themselves kind of on the fence of, you can still be elite, but you're falling in that kind of good and average category. So I don't want to just say, oh, the season's over and restart everything. I get that mindset, and I will say this, that while San Francisco doesn't have many assets to sell, hello, Niner Media, good to see you in the YouTube chat again. But as San Francisco doesn't have many assets to sell, like they're not trading Purdy, obviously. He'll get a big contract in the offseason. They ain't trading CMC. They ain't trading Brandon Aiyuk. They ain't trading George Kittle. They're not going to trade Deebo Samuel unless someone offers them this massive haul of picks, which I don't see coming anytime soon, especially with Aiyuk now out. You're not trading away Deebo, and you already weren't trading him because CMC was out. So you need Deebo more than ever, too, if you want to win big games. But I could see them trading Charvarius Ward. They can save around $9-ish million on the final year of that contract. They're going to want to pay Lenore. Bernardo Greens look pretty good. Yadam on a one-year deal. You have Darrell Luter Jr. I could see them working out a deal of, okay, Mooney, a team needs you. We're not having a great year. We're 3-5. We're going to rock with Bernardo Green. We're going to get a couple draft picks in return because we need some players. We need a receiver. We need some draft picks next year, linebackers and whatnot, offensive linemen, for God's sake. Get a center, please. Jake Brendle's terrible. I mean, the Chiefs rushed 3 yesterday and still got home because McKivitz can't block a freaking plank of wood. My God. But I can see San Francisco trading away Charvarius Ward. That is the one player that I can see if he goes into the bye week playing pretty well. I can see them trading him away for like a 4th round pick or something like that, just to maintain the roster and free up some money. They don't want to do that. I believe San Francisco thinks that they are a top dog. They're just kind of biding their time. Unfortunately, to keep biting their time, they ain't going to have much time left. Yesterday was ugly. It was bad, and today's even worse because Brandon Aiyuk is done. Your season gets a lot harder now. You have to play the Bills and the Packers and the healthy Rams and the Seahawks again, the Cardinals again, the Lions, and the Dallas Cowboys this Sunday. Like, the hope, it's not been restored. In fact, I think Niner fans feel worse after this week than they do after beating the Seahawks, which that was, we're back, we're feeling good, play action was great, the defense is coming up clutch, and now it's like, what the hell? Like, this season is a disaster for us right now. Matuki Han says, Kyle Shanahan has been blowing Super Bowls since he was the OC in Atlanta. He has 100% control of the offense, and he's still choking Super Bowls as well as leads at the halftime or going into the fourth quarter. He hasn't changed. I cannot argue anything of what you just said. Everything you said was right. Everything you said was right. But, what are we going to do? You're not going to fire Kyle Shanahan in the middle of the year. Like, who takes his spot? Nick Sorensen, Brandon Staley becomes the head coach. You would be even angrier at that. So it's like, you would make this team so much worse by firing Kyle Shanahan. You lose money, you lose one of the best play callers in football, and it's like, come on. If anyone deserves to get fired, as Niner Media says here, it is Brian Schneider, special teams coordinator. That dude is just dog crap. Dog crap. How many times, and I get this is an Aiyuk Center podcast and show, CMC might come back in 3 weeks' time, how are they going to react? But to pause for 1 second, Brian Schneider should not have a job in the NFL. You watched that Steelers game last night? They won that game because how good their special team was. That was a factor in a win. Every game so far this year, special teams has been a factor in them losing. Like, week 1, big return, although it wasn't terrible, but a big return. Week 2, Vikings, the blocked punt, the muffed punt. And then you have week 3 against the Rams and the big punt return, the missed field goal, and it goes on and on and on. And unfortunately, what happens is that Shanahan's like, well, we blocked a kick and scored a touchdown, so, that makes up for everything that happened beforehand. We made that 55-yard field goal. We stopped that fake punt on 4th down. That makes up for all the issues that we've had this year, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Just because you ace the final doesn't mean you pass the class. you can have an F going into the final. And let's be honest here. You're in high school, you're in college, you had that D- walked in a finals week, you're praying for a C on that final because it's like 20% of your grade. But this is not high school or college. This is, if you fail week to week, there is no chance to make it up. And unfortunately, Brian Schneider's unit has been one of the worst units in football for years and years and years. But let's couch that conversation because it's not going to change either. The folks that want to fire Brian Schneider are in the same boat as those that want to fire Kyle Shanahan. It's not going to change. If they were going to fire Brian Schneider, they had 10 days off to do it, and they didn't. They didn't do it then. They're not going to do it now. But back to Brandon Aiyuk. He's under contract until 2028. So he's under contract for the next 4 seasons, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. And there's void years involved in there in 2029 and 2030. But if I were to tell you that, Brandon Aiyuk's probably, the worst come to worst is that he's never the same. What do you do? This is a massive conundrum for San Francisco. We talked all off season about if there's one guy you bring back, it's Brandon Aiyuk. He's a first-round pick. He's played great every single year. He's gotten better every single year, trending upwards every year of his career. And in one fell swoop, one tackle, his knee is popped, ACL's gone, MCL's gone, maybe ligament damage, bone damage, who knows? We're talking catastrophic, career-altering, ending knee injury. Now, he'll try to come back, but it's what does San Francisco do? Now, they have a potential out in the contract in 2027. If the injuries still occur, maybe that's the case. They have some option bonuses that kick in next year, a $22.8 million option bonus. In 2026, a $24.9 million option bonus. So there is some money they can save and whatnot, but it's just on the field perspective, for the next 2 years, your team is now hindered. They don't have a separator that's proven at least. Pearsall can be that, but isn't that just yet? And you're reliant on Ronnie Bell and Chris Conley and Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing and Jawan Jennings and Deebo Samuel to carry you. Now, that's top heavy and then unproven, kind of like the defense is this year. And you're hoping that Pearsall and Cowing can have a Mustafa and Green-like impact on the offense. That's kind of the best case scenario for them. Gamer Bro says Niners need to get healthy. Well, today's not that day, brother. Today's the exact opposite of that. Or Seattle will make a run. Man, oh man. You're not wrong. Like I said earlier, this year feels a heck of a lot more like 2020 than 2021 or 22. Does that mean San Francisco is out of the running and it's over with? No, it doesn't. It just means that you have to grind every yard, every snap. And if you don't, you're going to lose. San Francisco can't just waltz into Arizona and LA and Seattle and, can't waltz into Buffalo and Green Bay and Detroit and go, oh, this one's locked. It's in the bag. No, because you played down to your opponents all year. You've made critical and catastrophic mistakes in every game, whether it's defense, on offense, on special teams. It's just a nightmare. This has not been a great year, and San Francisco has to earn and prove they belong in that, contender category. After yesterday, I'm leaning towards, at least this year, San Francisco being in the pretender category. And we talked a lot of this being the last dance for this core of players. For a last dance, my goodness, it's going out with the whimper. But, it's just the Niners feel somewhat directionless. And for a team that has felt like they've been going in the right direction since 2019, for the second time since 2020, they feel like it's a lost year. But even in that year, in 2020, you can point to the quarterback got hurt throughout the season. Bosa tears the ACL. Like, there's been more heavy-hitting injuries in that year than this season. And even that year, San Francisco was still vying for a playoff spot late in the season against the Washington Commanders. So the NFL season's tricky. It's weird. There's another wild card now where there wasn't back then. And San Francisco still has a quarterback. I think that, the Niners, with Aiyuk going out, they are going to have to rely on Brock Purdy to help carry the offense, carry the load. Brock Purdy has to be this MVP-like player. Now, he doesn't have to have all the weight on his shoulders, but if there's a time for Brock to earn that $65 million paycheck, it's now or never, brother. This is the time. You got 9 weeks, right? We played 7 games, so you got 10 more games to earn that $65 million paycheck, and you're hoping and banking on this roster getting it done. But that's all I have for you today. My name is Sterling Bennett. Don't forget to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers is the 49ers.access is the Instagram. If you want to see your team play this year, go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ErsAccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Thank you to Bobo, Niner Media, Gamer Bro, The One, New Raw. Who else is in here? Mituki. We also had at the very top, we had Rick Diaz and Kyle Chipto and Bruce Jones. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you can leave a like and share on the video. And if you can, give us a 5-star review on the audio podcasting platforms, Spotify and Apple Podcast. It's the easiest way to help the show out. And like Gamer Bro says here, a lot of football to be played. Anything can happen. San Francisco's backs are against the wall. Fingers crossed, and we're hoping they give it one heck of a push back and find their way back into that conversation of contender and get themselves out of the pretender category. But as always, tell me what you think down below. What should San Francisco do now that Brandon Aiyuk is done for this year? Are they going to trade for a receiver or bank on what's in-house? Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowling, Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell, Jawan Jennings, and Deebo Samuel to carry that load. What should San Francisco do? And if Aiyuk is done for this year and maybe even next year, where is the outcome? What's the outlook for the San Francisco 49ers offense and Brock Purdy if Aiyuk is never the same? But my name is Sterling Bennett. Thank you for watching, listening, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, as always, stay faithful.